Hi, and welcome to Coaching the Redline at the Redline podcast. My name is Alec Gonzales. I'm a life coach and spiritual director for pastors and leaders in the local church. This morning I was reading in my Bible and came upon a scripture in the book of Joshua that I thought was really interesting. And it made me think deeply about approaching quiet, thoughtful, attitude and posture. In Joshua, in chapter 6, verse 10, Joshua commanded the people, do not give a war cry, do not raise your voices, do not say a word until the day I tell you to shout. Then shout. And as I was thinking about that and journaling it and just wondering about it, some friends of mine and I are heading to the Spokane County Fair to share the gospel. And the idea of being near enemy territory, in enemy camp, around enemy stuff, the idea of being calm, being quiet, being sober-minded and gentle, and not being boisterous, but being very particular and careful and silent until it's the time. Until it's the time to proclaim the gospel, until it's the time to really to reach out, you got to be humble and quiet and sensible and sober-minded, and realizing that the enemy and not just people. Like, I'm not saying the people are the enemy. People are not the enemy. We have one enemy. His name is not the people walking by or the people in our lives, right? We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers. And I learned a long time ago, when you're in the enemy territory and you're in the enemy's camp and you want to steal his stuff, you got to be circumspect. You got to be careful, wise. And that's kind of how this came across to me. Like, they're going to march around the Jericho 7 days in a row. And Joshua is encouraging them to be quiet, to not shout, to not be boisterous, to talk quietly, to even be silent. And as you think about leaving the confines of your home or leaving the confines of the church and being in maybe enemy territory when you're in the world but not of it, maybe just be a little less loud, a little less boisterous, and just a little more calm, and realize that when the time is right, the Lord will prompt you. The Lord prompts us to share the gospel, to lovingly encourage people, to be kind and generous, but to walk softly and quietly before the outsiders, so to speak. This message obviously comes from a position of, I'm heading into, a gospel proclamation, evangelistic movement, and maybe not be what normal life looks like for me or for anybody else. But I thought it was just an interesting posture that Joshua was telling the people, be quiet as you're marching, be quiet and don't shout. When the time is right, I'll tell you. And then you can be loud, then you can be shouting. And what's really cool, I remember I kept reading on, and it says the walls just fell down. They just fell down. And sometimes if we're quiet, sometimes if we're careful, sometimes if we're thoughtful and prayerful, the walls will just drop, and the opportunity to share and love people and share the gospel, the message of Jesus and his love for us, will just open up, and opportunity will be there if we're quiet and circumspect and prayerful. That's all for now. That's I used to do the 3 thought videos, but this is just a single video. I'm going to go ahead and post it on YouTube. If you're thinking that you might like to have a life coach or a spiritual director, I can meet via Zoom or phone. Or if you're in Spokane, I'd love to meet in person in my little chapel here. If you know someone, maybe a pastor or leader in the local church, struggles with burnout and stress and all the difficulty of ministry, and you'd like to introduce them to me, I'd love that. Hope you have a great day, and we'll talk to you later.